Greetings. Welcome to Jotunheim Rising. I am your host, Fenris Wolf. War has been declared, and I am calling all listeners to examine the mechanisms of warfare. There are many who are looking at the signs of war that are truly present in the world. Geopolitical happenings that clearly indicate war is imminent. Military war is imminent. But I tell you now that war has been declared long ago and waged on the minds of every man, woman, and child on the planet. And there are none who remain unaffected by it. We are at war, and this is an acknowledgement of war. What are these mechanisms of warfare, and who are the enemies? We have been turned into our own enemy. And now I don't just mean that we've been atomized within our communities or hyper-individualized and alienated from our neighbors. What I mean is that we are in constant internal conflict. We've lost understanding and knowledge of ourselves by various mechanisms such as popular culture, media and entertainment, education, rabid consumerism, technology, debt-based currency, and even our religious systems has managed to pacify and subdue our minds to the point of ignorance of the prison which has been constructed for us. We exist today as prisoners of war, and we are willing prisoners and slaves to a system we, by our ignorant complicity, have helped to create. How can we fight this war? It isn't easy, because our collective mind vortex, breaking free of this vortex, this collective mind vortex I call it, begins with looking within ourselves and resolving conflict, acknowledging first that there is conflict, and facing those things that need to be reconciled within ourselves. Resolving conflicts, which almost always manifest as the struggle between comfort and survival, or reconciling desire and conscience, mastering our demons, letting go of ideas and habits which don't serve our purpose. And once we accomplish this, we can see the illusion that has been put before our minds and the chains that enslave us. It is my hope we can come together, individuals who will create our own collective consciousness and understanding to build up the machinery necessary to take control of the course of our destiny. Rather than being steered down the path of destruction, atomized and alienated from our brothers and our neighbors, the collective consciousness vortex that I talked about has two components. It's a duality. The duality of the left and right paradigm creates constant conflict. This false dichotomy, this duality of the left and the right, that paradigm is an engine of the war machine. The left side of the engine drives change, while the right side is more like a vacuum, protects and preserves the status quo. Think of your mind as an energy source. The right is the conservative side, while the left is the progressive side. The conservative side is the voice of preservation of the status quo, while the progressive left side, and I say progressive because the progressives are the radical revolutionaries. Some people refer to the left as the liberal side. The two sides are played against the other. But one side has historically been marked for destruction. And right now in America, if you fit a specific demographic, you are beneath the wheel of change, of this radical revolutionary progressive wheel that is grinding the status quo into dust and redefining what is conservative, what is traditional. And the old conservatives are marked for destruction. Now understand that this is a dialectical process of creating synthesis through conflict, because only when old institutions are destroyed can new ones be erected. The dialectic is something that finds and limits the parameters of allowable dissent in the way we think and speak. Propaganda and mind control, steering and defining where the conversation is allowed to go. This paradigm, this left and right media play that plays out before our eyes, gives you pre-packaged parameters for your assent and dissent. Everything is presented to you and limited for you. And so when you watch a newscast, and whatever newscast it might be, whether it's Fox News or MSNBC or whatever, and whether it's a left-leaning station, will bring on a representative of the right to come in and have a discussion with their talking heads. And what they are doing is using controlled opposition. And you are made to believe that this is a truly free-thinking dialogue happening before you. But in reality, what's happening is limits are being set. Limitations of dissent and assent are being defined for you. And anything that goes outside of those parameters will be mocked, ridiculed, relegated to conspiracy theory or fake news or misinformation or disinformation. And so the mainstream narratives limit your ability to think freely. We cannot stop change, but change is a cycle. It always comes back. Everything that happens now has happened before, and we can anticipate that. But we need to be able to accept that some things are going to die out. Some traditions cease to exist. We have to accept this. We can't stop this from happening, but we can control what replaces those things in the direction of our own path if we can break free of this collective mind vortex. War is being waged on the minds of our children, and the status of parents is being diminished to the point of being mere stewards. The schools and the municipalities have already adopted a convention known as the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And under this convention, the school district and the municipality in which it operates has more authority over a child than the parent. The audacity of the schools to presume to interfere in the private lives of families is infuriating. But I tell you now, the reason they are able to do so is because you have contracted away your rights when you enrolled them in their system. And as infuriating as it is, you agree to it when you send them there. And that's the way it works in this brave new world. How can the schools presume authority? And how, you might ask, can I say that you have contracted away your rights? Well, the same way you contract away all of your rights by signing their contracts. But you say, what about the Constitution? Well, don't worry. Your right to contract is protected under your state and your federal constitution. And guess what? Your school district and the municipality and the state are all corporations who, under the law, are defined as legal persons. So their right to contract is also protected. They got you. As soon as you contract with them, they got you. You have no more rights. You have privileges. And you might not believe me. You might yet insist that you still have rights under the Constitution. You can. Under the Constitution, you can have rights, but they don't make it easy for you. And when you sign their contracts, you have something, all right, that resembles rights, that makes you think you have rights, but they aren't rights. The contract you sign replaces your rights with privileges. That's just a fact. Look at it this way. Many people who believe that when they get on a social media platform and they get their account suspended for not following community guidelines, that the platform is violating their right to free speech. This is something a lot of people have gotten their head around by now. Okay, so no, they didn't violate your right to free speech. Why? Because you contracted with them that you would follow their guidelines. Free speech doesn't apply anymore. They're allowed to limit your freedom of speech. Okay? If it was a platform where there was no such contract, nobody would be listening to you anyway, if you could find it in the first place. All of the media platforms have this contract that you can be deplatformed, your voice taken away from you, if you violate their community guidelines. You sign the contract. So what about the Second Amendment? Second Amendment folks who believe that when they come for the guns, it's all over. Right? Guess what? They don't have to come for the guns. Not really. Not that they won't. But they know where they all are. Because your right to bear arms is a natural right. You have the right to defend yourself. Right? You have the right to defend your rights, which is what the right to bear arms is. It's your right to defend yourself and your rights, your natural rights. But when you contracted away all your other rights, what good is your right to bear arms anyway if you have nothing to protect, for one thing? But if you're buying a gun from a dealer or applying to the state for a license to carry, that contract you sign, when you do one of those two things, replaces your right with a privilege. And if you have a gun that was manufactured for purchase, one that has a serial number, that firearm is under the jurisdiction of commerce and equity, and is therefore under contract no matter who carries it. So you don't have rights under the Constitution as long as you contract them away in exchange for the privilege to have them. Period. You don't have rights when you sign the contract, not to guns, not to speech, not to assemble, not to a speedy trial, which if you ever find yourself in trouble with the law, the first thing they ask you to do is to waive your right. If you ever want to get together with and protest something, well, guess what? They tell you you have to get a license to do that. You contracted away your right for the privilege to assemble. Okay, you contract away your right to a speedy trial. You waive your right to, and we do this all the time. You sign those contracts as that's what they are. They're waivers. You're waiving your rights. You have rights. You do have rights, but only if you exercise them. We are at war, and we need to acknowledge that war has been waged on us. And if we will do the work within ourselves, challenge our beliefs, accept and prepare for change, we can win. And when we do, we can build a nation of kings and queens, of strong, sovereign individuals. Because strong individuals make strong families, and strong families make strong communities. But it begins with the individual. This is a literal war, and the purpose is to subjugate our mind to those who will rule over us after the coming military war. The world is now facing another global war, and I think that there are many of us out there who understand this, that this is where we are headed. And this war will create a new global political structure. If we fail, we will be ruled over by something worse than a dictator. We will be ruled by a concept, an idea which will control the collective consciousness of the mob, the hive mind, and it will be like a boot stomping on our face forever. In the next episode, we're going to take a look at individual rights versus collective human rights from a historical perspective. I hope you will join me next week as we talk more about these important topics. This is your host, Fenris Wolf. Take good care.